Union to Syria. The reason why the Soviet Union has supported Syria in those days is because the USA teamed with us, and they also look for a strong ally here. They teamed up not only with Syria and also with Egypt, and they did back them with weapons such in the Yom Kippur War, like the Sega and Sam rockets. Now, people do give a lot of credit for Israel winning wars about annual budget and technology. But for example, in the Yom Kippur War we have here in 1973, where our enemies to the east, Syria right there with a line of trees, and are 400 yards away. They attack us with T-55 and T-62 Soviet made tanks. They have better planes, they have more people than us, and it was just like David and Goliath all over again. 1 for 10 people. The reason why Israel tends to win wars, it's two things. It's high military morale and fast decision making. Every military is built under authoritarian structure. But the Israeli military is the least authoritarian military in the world, which allows us to have more flexibility in the battlefield, which allows us to have fast decision making. While the military surrounding Israel, usually under dictatorships or monarchies, tend to be the most authoritarian. So the officers that fought against us were pretty limited. They cannot even go to the bathrooms without getting permits from the generals. Also, we have very high morale. Israel, like it or not, is a country of immigrants. 9 from 10 Israelis are immigrants or son of daughters of immigrants, and we came here to be Israeli. We came from all the countries from the globe, from Europe and Africa and Middle East and Asia. We came here to be Israeli. We adopted the Israeli way. We kept the food, but we decided that we're going to be Israeli. The people over here have different perspective. But why the Middle East is such a mess? Now, a lot of you, I see everybody here from all ages. I bet all of you see the news and you read online and you search by yourself through YouTube and many more places. But today I will try to break it down from a Middle Eastern perspective. So this is a map of the Middle East, of my neighborhood. We have countries like Iran, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Saudi Arabia, all the Gulf nations. And this is how people in these areas see the Middle East. But in reality, by the eyes of the people that live here, it's quite different. Those are the actual borders of the Middle East. This is a tribalistic society. And the competition over water have destroyed integration between those tribes. People from that tribe wouldn't let their son or daughters to marry somebody from that tribe, because those guys are the enemy. And it's not only Muslims and it's not only Arabs. It's very complex. So when you live in a country like that, you care about your ethnic group or religious group. You don't care about your country. So if you ask an Iraqi, are you Iraqi? He will say, no, I'm a Kurd. I'm an Arab. I'm a Sunni Muslim. I'm an Armenian Christian. I'm a Druze. I'm whatever. They are loyal to the ethnic or religious group. Now we have countries in the Middle East which are happy. Qatar is a happy nation, but Iraq is a sad nation. How come? Iraq have more oil per capita than Qatar, and the GDP of Qatar is way, way beyond Iraq. Very simple. Qatar is one tribe. So you have homogenic society and a legitimate monarchy. Iraq is 74 different tribes. And they speak different languages, they think differently, they are different religions and different ethnic groups. Over here you have Arabs, and you have Bedouins, and you have Kurds, and you have Circassians and Persians, and you have religions. You have the Sunni Muslims, the Shia Muslims, the Alawites, you have Druze. You have some Jews here, but most of them are in New York, Tel Aviv, and Miami. But still, it's a very complex area. So we know when you don't have homogenic society, you have unstable nations. For example, look at countries like Saudi Arabia. Kind of stable. Why? 90% of Saudi Arabia are Sunni Muslim. Iran, 90% are Shia Muslim. But Syria, 74% Sunni Muslim, 13% Alawites, 10% Shiites. The same goes with Lebanon, just third. And when you see a very diverse country, you want to know why Yemen is such a mess? Look at Yemen. Look at those tribes.
Oh, wow. Oh my God.
If those borders of Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Jordan been drawn by the Sykes-Picot Agreement in 1916 by the French and the British. If you're going to come here from another country and you're going to draw straight lines for hundreds of miles, without looking at the tribes or the geography, you're going to make artificial countries. And after a century, beyond our average lifespan, will collapse. But what's the difference between those two? Because all of them are Muslims. They pray 5 times a day. They don't eat bacon. They don't drink beer. They fast on the Ramadan. They do Hajj to the city of Mecca. But what's the difference? There is 1.6 billion Muslims in the world. 90% belong to the Sunnah stream. 10% belong to the Shia. The difference is different caliphs. When Prophet Muhammad died in 632 in the house of Aisha, he never left any remark about who will succeed him, who will be the caliph. The Sunni Muslims believe the right guy for the job. They believe the scholars of the faith should choose who's going to lead the Muslim nation. they believe in Abu Bakr, which was the father-in-law of Muhammad. But the Shia Muslim believe in a dynasty. They believe in a bloodline. They believe in the fourth caliph, which was supposed to be the first one by their eyes, or the first imam, is Ali ibn Abi Talib. He was the cousin of Muhammad and son-in-law. He married Muhammad's first daughter, Fatima. So we know this, the difference. But those guys, like oil and water. And if you're going to ask the supreme leader in Tehran, the Ayatollah of Iran, who's his biggest enemy? It's not Bibi, it's not Trump, it's Saudi Arabia. And those guys been in the Middle Eastern Cold War since the 30s. Like the USSR and the USA, but over here in the Middle East. They never fought against one another, but they funded proxies in Yemen, in Egypt, in Libya, in Tunis, and now in Syria. But how all this mess began? Even though the population in Syria is 74% Sunni Muslims, 13% of the population, the biggest minority, the Alawites, run the country. The Alawites is a mixed religion between Shia and Christianity. They do pray to Prophet Muhammad, but they also pray to Jesus. They celebrate Christmas and Easter. They fast on the Ramadan, but they also drink wine. So they're not recognized by most Sunni Muslims as actual Muslims. In 1970, a guy named Hafez al-Assad, part of the Ba'athist Party. The Ba'athist Party is a socialist, nationalist, secular party, which is everything that the tribes that live in this area despise, took over the government with a coup, and he promised social welfare for everybody. Even though we saw a clear apartheid between the Sunni and the Alawites. The Alawites and Shiites in Syria were the generals, the politicians, the CEOs, while the Sunni Muslims, 74% of the population, were the foot soldiers and farmers. A clear apartheid. He unified all those ethnic and religious groups to fight a common enemy, which is Israel. Syria against Israel, and he promised to give back the Golan Heights that we conquered during the 6-day war. He failed because we won the Yom Kippur War, and his popularity went downward. He's not legitimate anymore because he lost against the Israelis. Some Sunni Muslims tried to assassinate him. They failed. In November 1982, he was so angry at the Sunni population, he massacred in the city of Hama 25,000 Sunni Muslims with chemical weapons. Wow. The Hama massacre.
Wow.
He ruled, he's a bad guy. You're gonna see. His son is also, Now, he ruled Syria with an iron fist, and he managed to keep Syria stable. A stabilizing dictator. Saddam Hussein, Gaddafi, evil people, but stabilizing evil people. In the 10th of June, he died from a heart attack. His son, Bashar al-Assad, that was supposed to be the next president and was trained to be, actually killed in 1994 from a car crash. He wasn't a very good driver. And his other son, Bashar al-Assad, the current president today, took over. But wait, this guy, in the age of 34, without a wife, very secular, became a president of a majority Muslim country. He was trained as an ophthalmologist in the UK. How you go from an eye doctor to a dictator? But sure, but that's the thing. He was the same as his father. He used the same tactics. People that tried to go against him in social media would be jailed. Politicians, execute. Nobody stand a chance in this guy. But today, to be a dictator or a tyrant, you're going to have a very bad time because people can share information and they have cameras in their back pocket.
Right.
Unless you are in North Korea. But still, in 2005 and 2008, we have major droughts here that prevented water from the Euphrates River, which come from Turkey, to Levant in Syria, to Mesopotamia in Iraq, which used to be the cradle of civilization, believe it or not. And the water being drowned out by the Turks, and a lot of Sunni farmers lost their farm. Most of them are farmers. So they moved to the major cities. The population have doubled. A lot of educated folks. You have so many reasons for an uprising. In 2010, a guy named Mahmoud Bouazizi, a street vendor from Tunis, torched himself on fire after he was a vendor without permits. And that sparked the Arab Spring. Not only in Tunis, in Libya afterward, Gaddafi fell, Yemen still going on, in Iraq, in Jordan, in Egypt, and all over the Middle East, we have protests. In March 2011, in the country of Syria, in the city called Dara, mostly Sunni Muslims, mostly farmers. There was a few teenagers there that did graffiti against the regime, saying to Bashar to go away in good words, censoring. And those kids being kidnapped by the regime, only 2 came back home, 1 didn't, named Hamza al-Khatib. And the parents mobilized a protest. And the protest turned pretty bad because this guy, just like his father, told the soldiers to shoot at the protesters. But he forgot one thing. His military, almost 300,000 strong, are Sunni Muslims. And they are shooting now at other Sunni Muslims? Doesn't make any sense. They defected, and until July, 2011, 100,000 Bashar al-Assad soldiers formed a coalition called the FSA, the Free Syrian Army. So this is a map of Syria. The red is controlled by the government, but the dark spots that you see on the map is controlled by the rebels. This is a Middle Eastern Cold War. Most geopolitical experts, American, Israelis, Europeans, and from this area as well, believe it's going to last 6 months, a year. It's going to be like with Gaddafi or with Saddam Hussein. But after 8 years, this month, Bashar al-Assad is still in power. What happened? As I mentioned, the Cold War between Saudi Arabia and Iran got into Syria as well. The Persians didn't have access to the Mediterranean Sea for 2,000 years. Now when Saddam Hussein fell, it's controlled by the Shia. Hezbollah, Shia organization from Lebanon, Hezbollah, party of God, have more than 74 seats in the Lebanese parliament. Syria, controlled by Bashar al-Assad, which is an Alawite Shiite. We have a Shiite bridge here. So the Iranians, the Ayatollah of Iran, started to support the regime in Syria. By doing it, Saudi Arabia, a Sunni country, started to support the Sunni rebels. They transformed a civil war into a Sunni-Shia religious war. In 2013, we have more players in the team. Now we have the Kurds up north, and we also have the Islamic State, the Awliya al-Islamiyah. Now the Islamic State, like those rest of those terrorist organizations like Boko Haram and Al-Shabaab and Jun Muhammad and the Taliban in Afghanistan, those organizations came from the same source. But ISIS decided it's going to be something else. They did came some way from Al-Qaeda, even though Al-Qaeda was funded by Osama bin Laden, by ISIS was funded by Abu Musad al-Zarqawi, which was killed in a 2006 American airstrike. It's very hard to kill the idea, and ISIS still exists. And ISIS said we're going to be different. We're not going to be like Al-Qaeda. We're going to take all over the West. We're going to put a black flag on the White House. We're going to invade Russia. ISIS, in some point in 2013, declared war on Al-Qaeda. Now, don't get me wrong. I wish both sides good luck, but it's not only Sunnis against Shia, it's also Sunnis against Sunnis. In 2013, 1,400 Syrians massacred by chemical weapons, the same chemical weapons that was used by the father of Bashar. That was condemned by the US administration. And Obama's administration decided they're going to attack the regime. Even though they didn't, because Vladimir Putin intervened and promised Obama that Bashar al-Assad will be disarmed. Even though we see it's not really true. In August 2014, ISIS executed an American citizen named James Foley on camera. He was a journalist. And ISIS became really famous. By the way, Taliban in Afghanistan killed twice as much people than ISIS. Boko Haram in Africa, massacring more than 4,000 Christians in churches. If you want to talk about massacres. Why ISIS is so damn famous? Why all the media was focused about ISIS, and the media fueled ISIS? And that's the problem. Terrorist organizations don't want to kill you. They want to put fear in your hearts. They want to put doubt. And this is how they use. They know they cannot win us with weapons or with brains. So they use different tactics. They use fear-mongering. And we gave them a platform, which we shouldn't have done. ISIS is a 21st century organization, and because of those the ways that the media showed ISIS, they became powerful. And in 2016, they gained more landmass than the UK. 100,000 fighters. They have done taxpayers' education system. They became an actual country with an anthem and a currency. But wait, those guys are backed by those guys, and those guys backed by those guys, and those guys and the Kurds by you guys, and also us. But the Islamic State, it's by itself. And in this game, you gotta have sponsors. We all knew in the beginning that ISIS will fall. And the regime in Syria, which is in the red, didn't attack ISIS. Why? Because ISIS divided the biggest enemy of the regime, the real enemy, which is the Kurds and the rebels. In this point, Obama had good and bad policies. Again, I'm not going to get to politics. You think over there is landmine fields? Try to speak about politics nowadays. And just in short, Obama policy with arming opposition in Syria wasn't a good choice because we did saw weapons getting to the wrong hands. We saw Islamist groups joining the Islamic State with American weapons. The best way to fight those Islamic groups is with economics. And this is exactly what we've done. And we all knew ISIS will eventually fall. The Russians said that in 2015 they are entering Syria to attack the Islamic State. Over 90% of Russian airstrikes was actually on the rebels, not on the Islamic State. ISIS eventually will fall, and it did. A couple of days ago, they lost their last stronghold in the end of the Euphrates River right here. So ISIS have fallen in Syria. But they are still here. They are in Iraq, they are in Southeast Asia, they are in Sub-Saharan Africa, but not here anymore. You see these dark spots over here? This is what remained from ISIS. that small thing. And this is 2018. Now it's not even exist anymore. And yes, they need to print new maps every couple of months. Now, the red is controlled by the government, the green by the rebels, and the yellow by the Kurds. There is more than 400 terrorist organizations, proxies, militias, mercenaries fighting in Syria. More than 90 countries supporting groups inside Syria. Now, people think, okay, those are the enemies of Israel. It's good that they kill one another. Napoleon said, when you see enemies fighting one another, let them be. But Napoleon also tried to invade Moscow in winter time. This situation is not good, and the reason why it's not good, because it creates a vacuum that allowed Israel, biggest enemy today, and it's not our personal record, it's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and their proxy Hezbollah. And they are building a military infrastructure right next to us. And even though the Russian military police said, yeah, it's only the 90th Brigade, it's only Syrian soldiers, how come they speak Persian in the communication? Kind of fishy, right? Yeah. So we're seeing Israel in 2018, and I remember the first day that Iran really provoked Israel was in February 2018. It was a Saturday morning, 5 a.m. Everybody is asleep in the kibbutz. All of a sudden we hear sirens. Everybody went to the shelters. I went to the roof to take pictures if you want to see afterward. But still, an Iranian drone that was captured by the Iranians on the Afghan border, which is actually an American drone, invaded Israeli airspace, and we shot him down with a jet fighter and a chopper. At the same time, they shot one of our jet fighters down, and it didn't happen since the Yom Kippur War in 1973, the last war. It didn't change our perspective, but it did change our. It didn't change our policies, but it changed our perspective. We decided to do more than 270 airstrikes under Iranian Revolutionary Guard. We destroy more than 70% of their infrastructure in Syria, and we will keep on doing that if they try to build a platform here. And why exit from the nuclear agreement is so good. Now, again, I know what's happening in the States with politics. I know with the European and Brexit and all that stuff. But the exit from the nuclear agreement was the best thing that happened to the Middle East in the last decade. Why? Very simple. As an Israeli, I don't fear from Iran having nuclear weapons, but I fear of a nuclear arm race. And when that nuclear agreement was made in 2015, that made Iran stronger. What made their export of war outside, and we see Iran involvements, not only in Syria, also in Jordan, where 80% of the population are Palestinians, and they don't like the illegitimate king. In Egypt, where the population have doubled in the last 40 years, and the GDP per capita is $2,800. We see Iranian involvements in every dark place in the world. Iran is destabilizing everything. For now, Israel decided we're going to attack those that will try to violate our sovereignty. We built a 12-feet high fence that goes 9 feet inside the ground, stretched for 45 miles zigzagging. We have motion sensors and cameras and drones circling the sky. 2 brigades of infantry, 2 brigades of tanks. We have artillery, self-propelled artillery, 6 missile guided systems, Arrow 2, Arrow 3, Iron Dome, David 6 shot, Tammuz, and Patriot rockets. Those guys are not the sharpest in the shed, but you're not going to bring a knife to a bazooka fight. This is pretty peaceful here. We're going to keep our border safe. But there is also a lot of people. In the end of the day, I know Syria is an enemy of Israel, but we decided we're going to help the civilians because they do deserve our help. We gave aid to more than 450,000 Syrian people. We have 32 kibbutzim and settlements in the Golan Heights where we gather supplies and donations, antibiotics, inhalers, baby food, diapers, wheelchair, glasses, fuel, and we gave it to Syrians, and we also deliver more than 7,000 babies right here on the fence, and we did over 5,000 chemotherapies and surgeries on Syrians inside Israel. Nowadays, it's totally different, because just a personal story. I born and raised in the Golan Heights. This used to be the most quietest border we had here since the Yom Kippur War, since the 70s. In Gaza, it's a hell with Egypt, we have ISIS there. Jordan is collapsing, and Lebanon as well, with Hezbollah. Everything is just crumbling away. Over here, it used to be so quiet. I remember coming to this place with my friends making coffee on the roof of that building, looking to the other side of the fence, where the population used to be over 1 million people. And the Golan Heights only 50,000 folks. You come here today at nighttime, pitch black. Don't see any lights at all. You don't want to live in an unstable world, but it's only the beginning. As I mentioned, Jordan could be next. Lebanon as well, facing a third civil war. Egypt and so on. But eventually, maybe, just maybe, if we're going to let them establish their own borders, maybe we're going to have legitimate countries, stable countries. And over here, you don't only need oil to prosper, as we can see with Iraq and other nations. The population of Syria used to be 22.5 million people. Now the population is 14 million people. So you have, I know the Europeans like to condemn Arab countries for not taking refugees, so let me just correct that. 1.9 million people in Jordan. 1.7 million in Lebanon. A third of the Lebanese population are Syrian. 2.5 million people in Turkey, and 1.5 million in Europe. Most of them are in this area. 672,000 people have died. And for now, the situation is well beyond fixing. It's about damage control. The main objective today is to establish safe zones between the groups that exist inside Syria, the green, which is the rebels, the red, which is the government, and the yellow, which is the Kurds, which we support. The Kurds are tough. Actually, just a story. The Kurds have the SDF, Syrian Democratic Forces, and they are responsible for they are mostly responsible for the defeat of ISIS. One of their tactics is they know that ISIS warriors use jihad, radical jihad, to fight. So they believe that if you get killed, you will get a place in heaven with 72 virgins. But if you get killed by a woman, like Kurdish women fighter, you go to hell and reborn as a dog. So when they see the young Kurdish women, they run away. Just like the Israeli women, just like any progressive country. This is my neighborhood in 60 seconds. Any questions? 60 seconds? Yes. There is two. There is one over there and one over there. They are observing. Observants. By the way, most people disagree with the UN. It's not only Israelis, it's Middle Eastern alike, because you can see Syrians just complaining about the UN pushing too much resources and resolution on Israel, while hundreds of thousands of people are killed in Syria and no resolutions at all. The UN is hated not by the Israelis. It's mostly hated by the Middle Eastern that's living in my neighboring country, because the system is not fair. They are pushing too many resources on a small country named Israel, which is not a perfect country, of course. We can be better. But South Sudan, 800,000 people died. Yemen, over 50,000 people dead. Syria, 672,000. Where are the resolutions? Why the UN is not involved like it's supposed to? But wait, yeah, Israel. That's the main focus now. So guys, I hope...
There are some groups that think that they're rebels, and some of the other things are states and attacks.
I studied the geopolitical thing. There is one branch of the FSA that did stage chemical attack, but Bashar al-Assad, 100% in April 2017, killed 85 people with chemical weapons, and afterward, Trump administration shot 12 Tomahawk rockets at the regime, which is the first time the USA attacked the regime, and guess what? The chemical weapons is stopped. Big surprise. The policies, regardless, Republicans, Democrats, I don't care. The current policy is the best policy we have, not for Israelis, for everybody in this area, including my neighbors. It's not only good for the Israelis, just so you know. People appreciate the current American policy. Because, yeah. If you ask most of the people in Syria or in other places in the Middle East, if they like the current president, the former presidents like Obama, Bush, and Clinton, they will say for sure Trump is way more productive for them. All of them have good and bad policies, but for now, the current policies are good. But again, we have to not be arrogant, right? It comes before the fall, so we have to wait and see how those policies will go, regardless of Israel. Today, I spoke mostly from a Middle Eastern perspective, not an Israeli, because I do see myself as a Middle Eastern, just that you know. Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Do the Syrians that you help,
Appreciate.
do they show their appreciation?
Yes.
Is it reflected in the
Yes.
population?
We see it in social media and many more places. Because the first people that help them is those enemies from the West.
So does that make Syria friendly to you?
Some of the Syrian civilian population, but most of them over here left to Jordan and Lebanon as refugees.
But not the Syrian government, bro.
Not the Syrian government. The body, part of the constitution of the Ba'athist party in Syria that controls since the 70s is to be anti-America, anti-Zionism, anti-Westernization in general.
Yeah.
How far is Damascus from here?
45 miles that way. much closer than Tiberias.
Wow.
So guys, we have some herbal tea and some chocolate wafers downstairs because if you're going to drink tea and eat wafers, might as well make it to Syria. So, any questions? More questions? Okay.